Hello and welcome to Jump To It for IrishRacing.com and Betting Expert. I'm Shane Anderson, and on today's show we've got plenty to talk about because Group 1 racing will be coming your way with the Sprint Cup at Haydock in the UK on Saturday, followed up by the Prix de Moulin over the mile at Paris Longchamp on Sunday. Plenty of news about too as I welcome in the team, Stephen Harris and Ed Quigley joining me. Stephen, I'll start with you. We've certainly had a fair bit of contentious discussion over the past few days, and one of the big reasons has been about the way stewards are interpreting protests and interference protests in particular in the UK. We saw a very strange situation at Goodwood over the weekend where a horse that, to the eyes of most, got demoted for causing interference. What are you making of it all?
Well, there does seem to have been some change, Shane, and it's certainly one that no punter's been informed about, and there's certainly a few in-running friends of mine who play quite heavily from the track who are absolutely furious at the moment because there seems to have been a real sea change without anything being said. The incident at Goodwood you've referred to was in a lady amateurs race. Zlatan won the race for Ed Giles, made most of the running really in front for most of the straight. Did hang left in front, but won fairly comfortably. And for some bizarre reason, the stewards decided to reverse the front two placings. Now, apparently the young lady who rode the win is quite inexperienced, whereas the lady on the runner-up is a far better talker, is the explanation I've heard. It's 1.001 to get reversed if it goes to appeal. But that's not been the only one. That was a particularly bizarre and strange one. But there's been a couple. I think there was a couple at Ffos Las and one other earlier in the week. So this is quite a strange... I mean, we can have a debate about the merits of it, but I don't think you can suddenly change things dramatically without telling anyone. And that's what seems to have happened.
Well, some discussion coming from the BHA, the regulator for racing in the UK, on social media during the week suggests that they've made no legitimate change to the rules. So to my eyes, Stephen, it has to then come down to interpretation based on the stewards panels. The UK is different to many other jurisdictions around the world in that a lot of the panels are made up of, shall we say, amateurs, not necessarily a professional stewards panel, which it would be run by the Integrity Board. So interpretation is one thing, but as you just pointed out, to have someone perhaps arguing a particular angle from a jockey's perspective, should that really be influencing whether or not a horse has been, caused significant interference? Surely we've got enough technology now that stewards should be able to look at the outcome of a race and make a call based on that without legitimate arguments being put forward.
I totally agree, Shane. It should be decided. There should be 10 people. I could provide a list for the BHA if they want of the 10 people. Most of them will be punters rather than geriatric sort of names from horse racing families over the last 100 years or so, sitting in an office somewhere or even remotely, 3 of them at a time. You don't need to speak to anyone. You can watch the head-on, you can watch the replay, and within 3 minutes you can make the right decision. You'll be consistent then, and punters will be much happier. It's quite simple. I've no idea why it hasn't been done. COVID would have been the absolute ideal time to do it, Shane, because you could have done it remotely, put the panel together. You have 10 people, and on any given day, there's 3 assigned to each meeting, and that's what they do. Now, the only thing you're going to get, people are going to say, what happens if there's a power cut and they can't see the pictures or something? We do need people on course. Well, perhaps you could still have a presence of one of the panel on course if you so desire, but you don't need to speak to jockeys, you don't need to speak to trainers, you just need to watch the head on, see what happened and make a quick decision. At least then we'd get some consistency. At the minute it's sort of gone back to the bad old days where it seems to be completely randomised depending on what time after lunch it is that the stewards takes place.
And you'd certainly love to see in stewards' reports detailed outcomes as to why the decisions were made when a result has been amended. Ed, as I welcome you into the program, good to catch up once again. There has also been a significant shift in the past 24 hours with what looks to be a reaction by the BHA based on Irish horse domination at the Cheltenham Festival in jumps racing, where there's going to be tweaks made to the handicapping system. What have you made of it all?
Yeah, hi Shane. Yeah, absolutely, you're spot on. I think the 23-5 drubbing from the Irish to the UK during this year's Cheltenham Festival is the tipping point, really. And so officially what they're looking at is to address an imbalance in the handicapping sphere, if you like, with the UK horses. A lot of trainers have been moaning that, some of their horses are, quote, impossibly handicapped coming into the Cheltenham Festival, etc. And yeah, this is not trying to hand an advantage back to the UK horses, but I think this is a really welcome move where a lot of discretion is going to be used to address an imbalance where perhaps the handicappers are admitting things have been done wrong in the past, to put it bluntly. Well, a couple of examples of which the key points I took out from reading through what's going to go ahead. The two key angles I'm looking in here is, number one, will be how they're handicapping the up-and-coming horses, the youngsters. It's all very easy to go overboard when you see a horse bolt up by 25 lengths in a three-runner race, and suddenly they're getting some laughable handicap marks after winning a race which is essentially fallen into the lap. For an example, there's a horse actually we mentioned on this show a few months ago called Captain Tomcat of Dr. Richard Newlands. This horse won 3 4-runner novice chases in the summer at Worcester, beating absolutely nothing in races that fell into his lap. He got given a BHA rating of 147 after the third of those. So just for a bit of context, Chantry House, who went on to win this year's Marsh Chase, Grade 1 at the Cheltenham Festival, was rated 151 going into Cheltenham Festival, just £4 superior to Captain Tomcat. Well, that's just absolutely crackers. In realistic terms, there's at least a stone difference between those, and that would be indicating that Captain Tomcat would have had a chance in a Grady race at the Cheltenham Festival. Well, subsequently, Captain Tomcat's got in the handicap company off a mark of 147 and been swatted aside. So I think there's going to be a lot of discretion, a lot of nuance used, which is going to be welcomed to kind of contextualise each performance rather than just saying, oh, you won by 25 lengths, yeah, you go up 2 stone. And at the opposite end of the scale, this is something, again, which has been very welcomed by traders, and I do think is a key point, is with the older horses, the veterans. We've heard Evan Williams has referenced it, Colin Tizard and Paul Nichols has said, you get horses which almost handicapped into retirement. By what I mean is they perhaps were rated 150. You've got a 3-mile chaser rated 150 in his pomp, drops down to 130. Again, wins an absolute nothing contest where the race fell apart. Perhaps the market leader fell. The ground was absolutely spot on the day. They get shunted back up to mark 144 at the age of 11. And connections are basically told by the trainer, well, look, you might as well retire the horse now because there's absolutely no way the horse can ever win again off that mark, which is fine if the handicap chooses to do that. But the key point here coming now, Shane, is where it's taken, as a lot of trainers have said, 2 seasons to drop £5 or £6 after that. The kind of discretionary board are going to, again, use a lot of context. And if they feel their horse deserves to go up to 144, they won't be afraid to drop the horse very quickly from 144. At least that's what they're saying. You know, if a horse 11-year-old runs badly next time out, he will come down £6 or £7 after one run, not take two seasons to come down £6 or £7, which is important because you see a lot of trainers, a lot of owners, a lot of syndicates. They've got some of these old lovely horses still going. What is the point in handicapping them into oblivion that they can no longer threaten the winners' enclosure? So I think that's good for the game. And yeah, normally I'm on here having a rant about something in a negative light, but I do think this is a positive move. You could argue perhaps it's come a little bit too late, but at least something is being done about it. And again, I said a lot of discretion, a lot of nuance is going to be used, and a lot of contextualising what we see. Not every time we see a horse win like Shergar are they actually Shergar, if you see what I'm saying. And I do think that needs to be addressed. It sounds like it will be. And yeah, it's definitely a positive move for the jump season.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. Guys, let's talk about nominations and declarations for races. So, of course, you'll see nominations for particular races happen at the start of the week by, depending on jurisdiction, a few days out from the race meeting scheduled. That's when horses will be accepted by their trainers, that they're going to officially take part in the races. What baffles me is we've got so many different ways of assessing this around the world. In Australia, of course, you know, I always love referencing what we do back at home, but like for the major Saturday race meetings, acceptances are taken on a Wednesday morning, so basically 3 days out from the meeting. In Hong Kong, where they've got the return of horse racing coming up this Sunday for the new season, acceptances are taken Thursday morning for the Sunday meeting. So you've got a lot of time to actually focus on getting the form right. Now, in the UK and Ireland, there's been some shifts around this. Ireland in particular, during the COVID period, they pushed back from a 24-hour acceptance or declaration component to 48 hours to give people more opportunities. But there's now talk that they might be going back to 24 hours. Stephen, to my eye, this is just a poor move if they do. Surely 48 hours or even longer is better for the sport, particularly from a betting perspective, because it's given people more time to do the form.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Shane. I know you've been on about this for a long time. You've got much more knowledge than I have in Australia and Hong Kong, for that matter. I think we need 48-hour decks as standard. It's much easier for punters. It's much easier to promote the sport. It's much easier for journalists who cover it to get paper coverage for the weekend if they know what's running and to build up to the races. From a betting point of view, I think it's very big for the sort of global tote that's trying to get going now. If they know the runners 2 or 3 days in advance. What I think you could do, it's got to be 48 hours for everything. Okay, you're going to have to suffer more non-runners, but that'll settle down over time. Perhaps not watering the tracks would be a big help. So trainers knew they were going to get proper fast ground half the time would be helpful. But for the Saturday racing, I would say that it should be Wednesday at 11 o'clock, the final fields. And that would be a massive help. That's where probably 75% of the betting turnover goes, is Saturday afternoon horse racing. And if the firms are up early by Thursday morning with prices for all the races, you'll generate a lot more turnover and interest. And it would probably encourage trainers, or certainly the trainers should be encouraged, to declare their horses and run them. And that would increase punter confidence as well. But we live in an information age, Shane, and my other bugbear about all this is, I mean, I've got access to the BHA site that owners have at 10 o'clock in the morning. So I can see the decks 2 days in advance. Punters can't. They're waiting till 11. There's usually a bug. You're usually getting around to midday before you find out what's going to run. Half the people know, the other half don't. It's absolutely ridiculous. It needs to be a set time. The decks are released, preferably 48 hours. 72 hours for Saturday racing or the big races on a Sunday. It really shouldn't be that difficult.
Yeah, I agree with you. Ed, what's your view?
I would echo a lot of what Stephen's saying, really. I mean, when I was at Racing Post, it used to be the 24 hours, and that was absolute carnage, especially on a Friday, on a busy day, trying to get the paper together with God knows what going on. But 48 hours, I think, makes a lot of sense. There is an argument to go to 72 hours for Group 1, so your big races, especially when we've discussed on previous shows about you want to market your best races. I mean, I can't think any other sport, darts, boxing, tennis, football, where 3 days beforehand you don't really know who's turning up or who's playing. If you know what I'm saying, who's playing in the World Snooker Championship, you can see the draw a fortnight in advance. So I think there's an angle in there, definitely. The only moaning I hear in regards to it essentially is because of the ground. If they get declared on a ground and then the ground changes subsequently due to a dud weather forecast or something, well, so be it. At least you're declared, and then you can pull out, if you see what I'm saying, rather than being this kind of absolute guess up to the 11th hour of who's turning up here and where. And in terms of organising transport logistics as well, I mean, I spoke to a couple of people within stables. They say, if you know 72 hours in advance, you've got a 500-mile round journey. I mean, that can only help in that sense as well. So I think it'd be a positive move. Generally, I think 48 hours for the day in, day out racing just makes a lot of sense. 24 hours, absolutely nonsense. I agree with Stephen in terms of you can find out who's running in a Grade 1 on Twitter before you can find out an official announcement to the public. It just seems absolutely crackers. This lack of kind of the lack of being formal would be the way I'd put it. There should be like an official announcement at a set time. But look, generally speaking, I think 48 hours is good. I would even look at the angle of, I think the Australian model for a big race, a Group 1 on a Saturday, something like the QE2. What is the harm in knowing on a Wednesday morning who's lining up? If the ground goes to pot and someone has to pull out, so be it. But I'd be against going back to the 24 hours. I just think don't really see the upside to it massively against the other advantages of calling the shots earlier.
Yeah, I think one last point on it. All of the regions, all of the countries that have got earlier decks and acceptances, basically the countries that seem to have the strongest betting models and higher levels of turnover. So it can only be a positive, and it just is baffling me that there is still some level of resistance in this day and age for people wanting to move to something that will only benefit the consumer, which should be the outcome of all decisions anyway. Guys, let's talk about some of the 3-year-olds. Snowfall, the outstanding filly, she's now going to the Prix Vermeil as a lead up to the Arc. Hurricane Lane's going to run in the St Leger, much to Ed's joy. But we have to talk about Lone Eagle, Stephen, a horse that you were actually supremely confident about going into the King George at Ascot last month, or just over a month ago. Suffered an injury in that race, and it now actually could be a career-defining injury for him. We may not see him again.
Yeah, it's a real shame, because he had some top-notch form. He ran an absolute blinder in Ireland when he front running just got picked off by Hurricane Lane. The pair of them were a furlong clear. That's probably some of the best form of all the 3-year-olds almost. And he's also had runs tied in with Adair, a real good advert for Martin Mead. And I mean, from a personal financial point of view, I was on each way at 6-1 for Ascot and made myself busy to get on. Thought that Wonderful Tonight wouldn't run, and a couple of others got pulled out as well. So it was 3 places, and of course the horse ran for about 200 yards. Sort of the alarm bells were ringing because I thought he'd front run. There was a soft lead on offer, really, which Dettori declined. And obviously the horse wasn't right from a long way out. But yeah, it's a real shame because he's a top-class horse when he's right. Let's hope he comes back as a 4-year-old, though. Things don't sound that promising at the moment, I don't think.
Yeah, good point. Ed, we need to talk about a new young star in the racing game, a guy by the name of Harry Derham, who's well known in National Hunt. But he's made the call. He's actually going to go out on his own and leave trainer Paul Nicholls, who he works alongside as an assistant to from the season 2023. But it's great to see another young person, highly regarded, really step into the sport.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Paul Nicholls' nephew, Harry Derham, he's of course he's the next one to take the bridge into the training ranks. Of course, we've had Dan Skelton and Harry Fry come from the same model, if you like. And yeah, so yeah, from 20, he's going to have one more season as assistant trainer to Paul Nicholls, and then from 2023, he's got his own purpose-built yard, which seems to be under a bit of secrecy where exactly it is, what's going on, etc. But he's going into training ranks here. He'll only be 27, 28. They seem to be getting younger and younger, don't they, the Shane? But yeah, I mean, he's had 6 years as assistant to Paul Nicholls, 12 years in and around the saddle, of course. Won Cheltenham Festival races for Paul when he, of course, famously won Salubrious in the Martin Pipe Conditionals for his uncle. So look, he's got a whole wealth of experience, learned from one of the best National Hunt trainers of all time. So you think he'd be well set, if you like. The key point, though, is it's quite interesting because you think, as far as assistant trainer roles go, that's pretty much as good as it gets, if you see what I'm saying. So the fact he's taking the jump suggests to me he must have a promissory note of some significant backing from a lot of owners early doors in order to make that jump. So yeah, exciting times for Harry Durham. And yeah, as I say, he'll be another young rookie trainer to add to the ranks. And as you say, in terms of you spent over a decade with Paul Nicholls in and around the yards, you're going to have learned a whole host of things which can only help and be of a massive advantage.
It's quite interesting, Stephen, as I bring you in on this point. We're seeing a lot of trainer partnerships emerge. It's certainly been something that has been in Australia now for quite a few years, but now we're seeing it more and more in the UK. John and Thady Gosden, father and son, are probably a perfect example. To see a young person want to go out on their own, rather than perhaps take what could be an easier option by going the partnership route, also suggests that he's got the right passion for the sport. He wants to have a red-hot go. Let's hope he can be quite successful.
Yeah, well, as Ed said, it's the best breeding ground for a young trainer, isn't it? Paul Nicholls. I went last year to Dan Skelton's. My friend has got a horse or 7 there, and you can't believe the facilities. I mean, there's a hotel for the staff that's sort of like Claridge's. The setup, the gallops, they've got pools, they've got. I mean, the actual stabling is absolutely immaculate, all brand new. There's 100-odd horses. He's been brought up, Skelton, so brilliantly by Nicholls, and now obviously he's a tremendously successful trainer of his own, and I'm sure Harry Derham will be exactly the same. But it's a flipping hard game, Shane, to get into if you've not got 1 or 2 really big backers behind you to give you sort of 10 horses to start you off with it, because these days it's very hard to get paid by people, and there's a lot of uncertainty in the business world. A lot of trainers are struggling along. You need a sort of big name backer. Whether he's got McManus has said he'll send him a few horses or someone like that, that would be a real helpful start in his career. But yeah, a tough game to get into, but fair play for him having a go. And no one has had better grounding of Paul Nicholls.
Ed, I've got to give you a big pat on the back. You've been training very hard to compete in a half marathon coming up. Just explain the reasons why, because you're out to raise money for a charity that's very close to your heart.
Yeah, absolutely, Shane. I'm running the Cheltenham Half Marathon this Sunday. I've done a couple of the London ones in the past, in my youth, shall we say, when it wasn't quite as tricky. But yeah, we're running the Cheltenham Half this Sunday for Macmillan Cancer on behalf of my sister who's not been well and unfortunately struggling with that horrible disease. So yeah, I've come out of retirement. I'm going to try and beat my previous best time of 2 hours 20. Come home like Don Poley at the Cheltenham Hill, totally out of breath. That'll be the plan. But like you saying, we were talking off air. You said you've lost about 5 kilos whilst having that haircut. Well, I've lost about the same in running 30k a week. So looking forward to it. Thanks to everyone who's donated so far. And I'm just going to load up on carbs on Saturday night and then yeah, hopefully I've got a few side bets going with friends that I can beat my personal best time. So that's, to be honest with you, that's what's getting me a bit on edge. So yeah, but all systems go for Cheltenham, and it will be the only time I get up the Cheltenham Hill, hopefully anyway.
Well, you're looking trim, taut and terrific. Let's hope you can get through it without pulling up with an injury, particularly a hammy at your age. Hamstrings are the ones to often worry about. I think we do have just a graphic to highlight the opportunity if you would like to donate some money to your charity. So we'll make sure that we can promote that through Jump To It, and also give you the best of luck, and we'll throw a few pounds into raising money for you this weekend. All right, we need to also highlight the fact that there will be a shift with Jump To It. As of next week, we're actually launching a new irishracing.com YouTube channel. So make sure you head to irishracing.com's YouTube channel, subscribe, and you'll see a lot of racing content now be positioned there. Of course, we'll still have the panel involving Stephen and Ed, but just a new home. Head to irishracing.com's YouTube channel. It's now time to have a look at the upcoming races. And really looking forward to racing this weekend. As I mentioned, we've got Group 1 racing coming up from Haydock, including 4 really interesting feature races on Saturday. We start with the listed Ascendant Stakes, sponsored by the Betfair Exchange, and this is a race which usually provides a decent winner. Jukebox is in the field, as is Haffett for Charlie Appleby and William Buick. Power of Beauty's there. Triple Time is also accepted for the race. So that is the Ascendant Stakes. We've only got a small field, Stephen. Probably disappointing the way that the field has dropped out, but quite often we see a top-class prospect emerge from this.
Yeah, it's a good race. Shame 4 runners. I mean, just touching on this week just gone by, that the field sizes have been diabolical in the UK. I mean, I think I saw an alarming stat that it's never been worse than the last week or so. Now, some of that is fast ground related, but some of it is the age-old thing of far too much racing. I mean, this Saturday the racing is very good, but Haydock are going to be disappointed here. 4 runners. I thought Power of Beauty had the best form. I really liked his run at Salisbury last time. He bumped into a Tartar that day. The pair of them were 6 lengths clear of the rest. I think that's the best form on offer. But 4 runners, this could be muddling, so I'd keep stakes very small.
It's also a bit of a challenge when you're seeing some of these 2-year-olds get out to the mile for the first time at this stage of their career. Ed, do you have an opinion in the race?
Yeah, tricky one, is it? Triple Time, as you mentioned there, Shane, he stepped up to the mile last time out for the first time, absolutely pulverised the field over course of distance, won by 10 lengths. However, that was on very deep ground. Does have a bit of an E-action. Looking at the weather and looking at conditions, it is officially good to firm. I think the ground is going to be a bit lively here. I thought it was interesting. Charlie Appleby at the entry stage had 3 unbeaten individuals all entered and has chosen to run Haffett, who looked better the further that one went. I thought stayed strongly over 7 last time out, so it looks a logical move going up to a mile, I think. So a tricky old contest, but I think Haffett, more improvement to come. Ground would probably suit. Get my tentative vote, shall we say.
The first of the group races on the card is the Superior Mile, which is brought to you by Betfair's double daily rewards this year at Group 3 level. And again, only a small field here with 5 runners to face the starter. My Oberon's around 5-2 with Paddy Power in the early markets for trainer William Haggis. Artistic Rifles is at 12-1. Bell Rocks at 6-1. Lord Glitters, proven at the elite level, currently the favourite at 13-8. And May Danny at 130 next in the field as third pick. So only a field of 5 here, Stephen. What is your assessment in the early stages for this race?
Well, my starting point with this one, Shane, is that Lord Glitters is 8 and has run 35 times, and he's 6-4. So it's going to be a pretty ordinary Group 3 that he wins. I mean, it's a terrific advert for David O'Mara. The one who I prefer comes from the same line of form, actually, as the favourite, Bell Rock, who's, I think, around about 8-1. While the favourite's 6-4. Now, on their York running, they're virtually the same horse. And the reason I think Bell Rock here drops back to a mile, he's going to need a positive front running ride, but he might get one here in this small field, and he could take a bit of shifting off the pace. Certainly, 8-1 Bell Rock, 6-4 Lord Glitters. I thought you could only jump one way. And of course, Andrew Balding is absolutely flying along. So we've been talking about him on every episode of Jump To It. It does look now as though he's heading towards winning the Trainers' Championship, which is pretty incredible, given that he hasn't really got the massive firepower of some of the bigger yards, certainly in Newmarket. So Bell Rock for me, hopefully get a positive ride because he stays really well. Back to a mile, he could take a bit of passing.
All right, Bell Rock at a decent price from Stephen. Ed, are you with the favourite, or are you finding one at a bit of odds as well?
I'm finding this an absolute minefield, to be honest with you, Shane. It's a really tricky race. I mean, Lord Glitters is the class act, but not getting any younger, totally exposed, for want of a better phrase. No, I won't waffle on. I really just find this too hard to come down on, to be honest with you. So I'm very happily going to sit this contest out.
Let's move on to the next race on the card. And it's traditionally a good betting race. This is the Betfair Exchange Old Borough Cup, a handicap at Class 2 level over 1 mile 6 furlongs, 2,800 metres. And the field is headed by Global Storm for Charlie Appleby, Godolphin and William Buick at 7-2, Sexton at 25-1, All Right Sunshines at 10s, Nicholas T at 14-1, Island Brave at 11s, Hockfield at 11-1, Rhythmic Intent at 8-1, Rajinsky's at 7s, The Trader is at 11-1, Autumn War at 10-1, Indianapolis at 11-1, and number 12 Noble Masquerade down in the weights. Holly Doyle to take the ride, currently at 5-1. What's your view here, Stephen?
Yeah, I was quite strong on Global Storm here, Shane, the top weight. He's run 4 times over this 1 mile 6 trip, and he's really, really improved. One start back at Newmarket, he bumped into a very useful performer, Live Your Dreams, who, although he's been beaten since, I think there is excuses that day. That's very good handicap form. And last time out, his disappointing run on the face of it was in the Ebor at York. Now, he finished, but watching that run back this morning, he got at all. He was well out of his ground, and his run got repeatedly checked. So you can forget that. He actually ran perfectly well. It was another rock-solid run. So he's thriving. I think he's got a touch of class over these. Now, the only negative is, when I was sort of looking at it, he was 6 or 13-2, and I think he's shortened right up. There's a few come out of this race. He's only about a 4-1 chance now, so that's probably got down to his price. But nevertheless, I think Buick's booked. He should take an awful lot of beating.
All right, the top weight from Stephen in the Old Borough Cup. What about you, Ed?
Yeah, I'd generally be concentrating on those towards the top of the market, actually. I was looking at those further down the list, not inspiring me. I totally respect Global Storm. I do think that the value's kind of gone now as an overnight punter, shall we say. Noble Masquerade has been in flying form. Holly Doyle's in the saddle here. Progressive type. Has only once run over mile 6 when disappointing. That was a long time ago. Everything we've seen from Noble Masquerade in recent times over 11, 12 furlongs. Horses just power clear in the closing stages. And I think this time to go back up in trip will really suit. So again, not a strong view in this. A really trappy racing here at Haydock over the weekend, and I've got it between the top two. Perhaps at a price, is it double the price? Noble Masquerade probably be the one I'd side with.
Let's move on to the fourth race that we'll assess from Haydock, and this is the big one. It's the Betfair Sprint Cup Stakes at Group 1 level, 6 furlongs, 1,200 metres. And the field is headed by Art Power, Tim Easterby and Sylvester de Souza at 15-2, Emirati Anna at 18-1, Garris at a big price, Glenn Shield, consistent sprinter at 17-2 for Holly Doyle. Starman, very exciting sprinter, is your even money favourite. Then we go to Summergarn. Great to see the old boy back winning last time out at a big price. Creative Force, who's been a very good sprinter throughout the season at 5-1. Nando Parado, good to see him here. Frankie Dettori in the saddle at 50-1. Supremacy at 14s. Chill at 16s. Happy Romance, the last to discuss there at 16-1 for Richard Hannon. I wouldn't say it's a star-studded Group 1 sprint this year, Stephen, but there is a bit of depth here. Have you got one that you're clearly keen to follow?
I know you're keen on a roughie here, Shane, or an outsider, as we say in the United Kingdom. But before we get to that, I think Starman's a good thing. I think it's probably the best bet of the weekend odds against, to be honest with you. I can't really find a second in. I'm not mad at all on Creative Force, so I thought looked quirky, to put it politely, last time out. And he's had a long, hard time of things, lots of runs. Starman, on the other hand, so impressive at York first time out. Ed Walker said the ground's a bit too loose for him. He wants proper fast summer ground. He then won the July Cup in devastating style. I thought that was a really top-class performance. Now, last time out in France, the ground turned really soft on the day. I don't think they'd have run him given the choice. He was sort of wheel spinning in the conditions, still ran creditably. Back on fast ground at Haydock, as you've touched on, this is a very weak renewal in my opinion. And I think he's 5-4 for looking, I think, at the best prices on offer. I think that's a very fair price. He's the banker of the weekend for me.
All right, positive push for Starman from Stephen. Ed, what's your assessment?
Yeah, again, not my type of price really, but Starman will take a lot of beating here. No excuses of a ground. It's a substandard renewal, doesn't it? Creative Force doesn't get me going, really. Art Power and Glen Shield, I think both of those would be much happier with substantial give underfoot, which it looks like they're not going to get. And then you're into like Supremacy, who's raced the ambulance twice this season, and then into glorified handicappers. Look, I think this is Starman's to lose, essentially. Something's got to go wrong, which sometimes it does do in these sprints. You get just a split second gap doesn't open, or something goes wrong, some sort of shenanigans. But as far as kind of 11 to 10 favourites go, this one's ticking a lot of the right boxes. And I know you like one an absolute rag here, Shane, where I can actually see your logic. So we'll let you take the dance floor for this one, but I actually don't think you've totally lost it. So no, far away.
It's good to have that level of support from you, Ed. It means a great deal. No, I think Nando Parado, look, this is probably the last time I'm giving him a chance. I tipped him at Royal Ascot and he was quite horrible there. But I thought his run over 7 furlongs last time out wasn't too bad. He basically led the field into inside the final furlong and then weakened, dropping back to 6 furlongs. Significant booking of Frankie Dettori. He's drawn barrier 5 in the field of 11, so I think he'll be right on speed, but in the bunch, and I think he'll get a chance there. So if you're getting 50 to 1 each way, I think he's worthy of a go. But if he doesn't run to form, I think I need to sack him for good after this. Right, let's go to the all-weather track feature meeting, and that is at Kempton, where we've got 2 group races to focus on. The first is the Unibet 3 Uniboost Today Sirenia Stakes, a Group 3 contest over 6 furlongs, and we've got a field of 8 here. Hierarchy with Hugo Palmer, Sheen Murphy, unbeaten, certainly looking very promising. Wings of War, Eve Lodge, Fearless Angels in the field, Ross O'Ryan taking the ride on the filly. Honey Sweet, Clifford Lee in the saddle, Nymphoradora for Pat Dobbs. Princess Shabam is still waiting on a jockey to be confirmed there. And Scott's Grace only had the one start for a nice win over the course and distance is the other one to focus on. So the 2-year-old feature, field of 8, Stephen, do you have an early assessment?
Yeah, I thought this is a really good race, actually, Shane. I really like Wings of War here of Clive Cox's. Now, Clive Cox always has some really top-class juveniles that he brings along, and they keep on improving run to run. And this one was one of the most impressive winners I've seen at Nottingham, one start back. He had the race absolutely stone cold, 3 furlongs out on the bridle, sauntering away from a fair field. They then sent him up to York, 20 of the Goff race, worth a fortune. And he ran an absolute blind in a huge field in a race. The winner came from a lot further back than him. Watched the run back. He did hang for pressure, which is not totally unusual at York, having been up on the hammer. I think he'll be well suited by Kempton. He's got an okay draw in 5. I'm rather hoping that Hector Crouch, who's booked for the yard, makes all the running, gets that rail and kicks away on the home turn. I think he'll take a lot of beating. Should be a lot more improvement to come from him.
All right, Wings of War, the top selection there from Stephen. Ed, what's your view?
Yeah, interesting. You make a case for pretty much all of them, can't you? I just thought the value call might be one that's a little bit forgotten here, and that was Honey Sweet for the Carl Burke team. It's been running some really good races. Ran in the Duchess of Cambridge, was only beaten 4 lengths by Sandrine. Went up to 7 furlongs last time out. Was far too keen. Pulled the jockey's arms out. Coming back to 6. This horse hasn't won since debut, funnily enough, which was over 5. I think there's a lot of speed in this individual, and I think coming back to 6 furlongs, as long as they go a good gallop, will probably suit. But again, bit of a muddling affair. Your eyes are naturally drawn to those more unexposed types, like the Hierarchy and Wings of War, and chances are on balance probably one of those will come out on top. But I do think Honey Sweet's a little bit of a forgotten horse. She's got some good group form, albeit in defeat. And I think on paper at least anyway, this is a half decent chance for her to get back into winner's enclosure.
Yeah, you make a good case for her there. I'm siding with Hierarchy, Ashim Murphy on the unbeaten son of Memes. I think from gate 2 should get every conceivable hope. I have backed it its first 2 starts where both have been winning, so maybe there's that bias there, but I do like the Colt as a prospect going forward. Let's go to the next feature on the card, and this is the Group 3 Unibet September Stakes. It's over 1.5 miles, and we've only got a very small field of 5. But a pretty cool field too, because Hookham has certainly been in great form this season and will likely start the favourite, Jim Crowley in the saddle for Owen Burrows. Foxtel, Ashim Murphy for Andrew Balding. Hamish is there for Pat Dobbs and William Haggis. Outbox, Luke Morris and Archie Watson. And Prince of Arran, potentially going back to Melbourne for another attempt at the Melbourne Cup. Ross O'Ryan and Charlie Fellows. So, Stephen, small field of 5, potentially a trappy affair, but we do have a horse in great form, and that is Hookham.
Yeah, the ratings, Shane, would suggest that there's only a few pounds between these, but I suspect, I'm not seeing any betting yet, that Hookham will be a very short-priced odds-on favourite. He's really thriving. Now, earlier on in the summer, I thought he was a bit quirky for pressure, but he's done absolutely nothing wrong. I opposed him the other day, 21 days ago, and he won, and he absolutely bolted up. It's always going well under a confident ride. Foxtel, for me, is an ungenuine rogue. Hamish hasn't run for 442 days. Outbox is liable to front run under Luke Morris, and that's probably a tactical advantage in a small field round Kempton, but I think he's a hard-knocking, good handicapper Outbox. I suspect Hookham will do him for foot, and the bottom one, Prince of Arran, has been fairly disappointing and lightly raced this season, so stand out for me, Hookham. Be disappointed if he's beaten.
All right, solid push for Hookham. What's your view, Ed?
Yeah, absolutely. All in on the Hookham camp. Steve mentions prices from an anti-post angle. I think Hookham was priced. It was 7-4 anti-post. Obviously, there are about 14, 15 entries at the time. And this race is obviously cut up, and its price will be shorter or significantly shorter now, unfortunately, due to the nature of this race, cutting up to just the 5 runners. But yeah, Hookham really impressive in the Geoffrey Freer last time out. Won at York the time before. I suppose if you're going to try and find an angle where the horse could struggle, yes, the horse is penalised, and coming back to just under 1.5 miles, the horse has been running over 1.5 miles, 1.6 miles in recent times. Well, but this is a horse with a lot of natural dash. This isn't a slow horse by any stretch of imagination, and I just think Hookham will just outclass this field personally.
All right, Hookham, and I'm very much in the Hookham camp as well. So the three of us, it's an additional few pounds he'll be carrying on his shoulders this weekend, but he does look the one to beat. Just got to give a mention. Things are pretty quiet in Ireland this weekend, but of course we're only a week away from the Irish Champions weekend. A 2-day outstanding lineups of quality contests, and it looks like too we're going to see crowds being allowed to come back in significant numbers. We'll talk more about that on next week's show. But on Sunday at Paris Longchamp, we've got the running of the Prix de Moulin, a 1,600 metre or a mile contest, and it looks like we're going to have a field of 8 outstanding prospects. Aidan O'Brien saddling up Lope Fernandez, and also Victor Ledorum's there for Godolphin and Andre Fabre. Order of Australia, another one for Aidan O'Brien, and Coolmore. The brilliant 3-year-old Poetic Flair, Jim Bolger, is running him again. The unbeaten Baid, William Haggis for Shadwell. November is also in the field. The German filly, and Snow Lantern, the outstanding filly, Richard Hannon, is also to take her place, along with Kersamba. So we've only got a field of 8, but this could be one of the races of the season, Stephen, I think. Just have a look at the quality in that lineup. We're set for something special, I think.
Well, I mean, Poetic Flair, Shane, we've talked about every week, really, has run virtually every week through the flat season and keeps coming back for more. I mean, part of me, I think, was probably a bit unlucky last time out. They were split across the track, the front pair in the market, and I suspect if Poetic Flair's jockey could ride the race again, you might see a totally different outcome. But that being said, Baid, I think I am in the Baid camp. I'm a believer in Baid. Just one thing about 4 from 4, William Haggis, absolute genius, knows the time of day. This shows the difference between the flat and the jumps in a way, Shane, because don't forget, Baid only started racing on the 7th of June in a Leicester maiden. We didn't know anything about him 2 months ago, basically, which just shows how transient and fast these things come around. Now everyone talks about him like it's Frankel. He's won 4 races. I mean, his performance at Goodwood back on the 30th of July was absolutely extraordinary. He'd got the race stone cold 2 furlongs out and just sauntered clear. Now, he might not have beaten a lot, but sometimes you need to be a sort of visual believer, and I think he is going to take an awful lot of beating. I do see the firms, again, unfortunately, the juice has gone out of his price, but a lot of the firms made a rip going down with the early prices. I think he was odds against in a lot of the lists, and he's now about a 6-4 on chance, I believe. There's also some doubt about Poetic Flair running at the time of recording, so we don't know for certain that match-up's going to happen. But personally, I'll be very disappointed if Baid is beaten. I think that's a comment that might apply all the way through to the end of the season at Ascot.
A Baid believer is Stephen. Ed, I want to sort of put the same question to you. As Stephen referenced, it is a remarkable ascension he has made. He made his debut the 7th of June at Leicester, winning over 1,600 metres, an extended mile. He then went to Newmarket, again won over the mile. He went to Newmarket again, winning a listed mile contest before that demolition job during the glorious Goodwood Festival, winning a Group 3 contest with ridiculous ease. But the reality is, it's been basically 2 months since we first saw him to where we are now. What a rapid rise.
Absolutely, just come out of absolute nowhere. I bet some of the Haggis team at home were absolutely laughing, weren't they? When they could see what he was doing on the gallops in May or whatever. Before he lined up in his Leicester maiden. Look, yeah, clearly this is a horse who. It's about 2 or 3 times a season you sit up and you see a race where it makes you just sit up and go, wow. And we definitely had the wow factor at Goodwood last time out. And look, I've been saying it, this race looks perfect for him, because the one thing William Haggis has said, he said he'd be very nervous about ever running him if the ground turned genuinely soft. Well, you're my expert weather forecaster, Shane. You tell me it's 23 degrees in Paris. The sun's beating down. The ground's going to be on the quick side. I see very little excuses for him in that regard at the weekend. Yes, this is a tougher assignment once again, but look, I think he'll come through this with flying colours and then sets up the contest. I flagged up on social media a month or so ago where I do think we could get him against Palace Pier, alcohol-free back down and trip, and I think Poetic Flair will wait until Ascot for the QE2 to have a crack at Bailly then. That will be the race of the season, no doubt. Even just those 4 runners, unbelievable contest. Obviously, the nervousness, if you're in the Bailly camp by Ascot in October, would be if the ground went against him. But look, he's a horse with so many gears, really exciting. I just love to see him turn up and absolutely pulverise this lot.
Great stuff. Guys, it's now time for the tips of the week. And the 3 of us struggled a little bit last weekend as we have a look at our results. Stephen, I'll start with you. It was a rare off day for you, unfortunately losing 5 units, but you're still a mile in front, 69.5 units up for the season. But we missed out with Hello You, Dance Fever and Stormy Antarctic. Let's have a look at who you're keen on this weekend, Stephen. Who do you like?
3 good bets, hopefully, Shane. Starting off with, I think it's my betting expert value angle selection, Global Storm in the Old Borough Cup. As I say, we've mentioned before, but he was unlucky in the Ebor. His previous 3 runs over this trip is top-class handicap form. He does have to give away weight all round, but Buick's book, fast ground ideal. I think he'll go extremely close. My betting expert nap of the weekend is Starman in the Super Sprint. Fast ground, absolutely ideal. I don't think there's any rain at Haydock forecast. I don't think they're going to water. It should be proper fast summer ground. I don't think there's a second in. He's a class above these. He's got an explosive turn of foot. There's 1 or 2 trailblazers to set things up. Hopefully he'll come through late. And then one at a bigger price over at Ascot in the 345, the big handicap there, which is on ITV. I really like Cliffs of Capri here. Jamie Osborne. The blinkers are on. Dougie Costello's booked. He ran over a mile at York last time. A lot better than the bare result. Didn't settle in the first half of the race and ran better than it looks. He hasn't won yet this season, but his last 3 runs over 7 furlongs at Ascot, 4th of 19, 2nd of 19 and 4th of 23 in slightly better races than this. He has come down a few pounds this summer. Things haven't panned out, but this is his day. I think he's 12-1. And always say this, Shane, to jump to it. If you can play with a bookmaker offering 6 places, play each way, that's where the value lies. So Cliffs of Capri for me.
Yeah, I think you found a good one there with Cliffs of Capri. Ed, let's have a look at your performance last week, and it was a marginal loss, losing 3 units with Cardem and Bangkok not performing, but you're still well ahead at 19.5 units up for the season. Let's have a look at who you like for the weekend ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to keep it relatively quiet. Again, some of these contests, I said, were a bit of an equine Rubik's Cube to me, so I'm not going to get stuck in some of those big handicaps. We're going to, on Saturday, we're going to Hookham in the September Stakes. I just think he'll outclass the field, to put it bluntly. Obviously, his value's kind of disappearing as the... at the time of tipping him, if you like, there was double figure entries. He's cut up to 5 runner field, but he's the class act. He's officially the best horse in the race on ratings, and I think he'll win. And then that should say Sunday actually for Fontwell. Jamie Snowden trained Guinness Affair. As we touched upon, we're just getting into the national hunt season, starting to bubble under. This is an interesting horse who bolted up in his Huntingdon bumper and then won very nicely, and albeit a minor contest at Stratford on his hurdling debut. Jamie Snowden actually said he thinks this is going to be one of his leading lights going into the winter. Perhaps could be a a Persian War novices type, or at least I think he'll end up in one of the big Saturday novice hurdle races. So I think he, again, just have a bit too much class for whatever turns up at Fontwell. He'll tend to make he'll definitely get 2.5 miles easily, perhaps 3 in time. So over 2 miles 2 on a tight track like Fontwell, I expect similar tactics to be employed to last time out. Go on, make all, jump well, and hopefully won't see which way he went.
All right, good luck to you there with your selections for the weekend. Reflecting on my performance last week, well, I still haven't recovered because Nagano traded in, I think from memory, as low as 1.09 on the exchange, but just could not reel in the leader in the race and lost by about a head. So I lost 10 units, so I'm struggling, 23 units down, but I'm keen to bounce back. As the guys mentioned earlier in our discussion, I do like Nando Parado at a massive price in the Betfair Sprint Cup. 66-1 you're currently getting with Ladbrokes. I'm happy to have a unit each way there and hope he can run to his best form, which I think if his best form does appear, he's right around the placings. I do like Hierarchy in the Sirenia Stakes at Kempton. I'm happy to have 4 units to win there. And I'm agreeing with the guys. Hookham certainly looks the horse to beat for mine in the Unibet September Stakes. I'm going 4 units to win there. And let's hope I can strike back because I need some love. I need some support from the team to get myself back in the black. All right, guys, plenty to look forward to over the weekend. Stephen, what race, if any, are you looking forward to the most?
I really hope Starman proves himself to be a top-class sprinter at Haydock, Shane. And like the horse from the day he won at York, I think he's really, really useful. He's got a toe foot, which is unusual in these sprints. And from a punting point of view, I'm hoping Cliffs of Capri can win at Ascot.
Good luck to you, Ed. Of course, not only will you be hopefully finding winners for us, but you've got your half marathon coming up, and I certainly, on behalf of everyone, wish you well there. But what race are you looking forward to the most this weekend?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, yeah, Starman and Baid. There's no doubt I won't have any of that type of pace on Sunday around Cheltenham. I'll be coming home like Santini, I think it'll have to be said. Looking for Baid is the horse that I'm going to obviously record that and watch that. I'm just really looking forward to that horse. He just sets the pulse racing, doesn't he? Obviously, he's going up in the grades, up in the levels. But that performance of Goodwood last time out was mind-blowing. So really looking forward to him. Just want him, no dramas with Baid. Want him to big tick in the box, win that race, head to the QE2 for the match against Palace Pier, which will be the billboard kind of marketing dream, wouldn't it? Those two go head to head. So yeah, really looking forward to that, and we'll try my best not to embarrass myself when I come up the Cheltenham Hill. So yeah, all systems go for that.
Good luck. Make sure you stretch, and we hopefully will see you in peak order next week. Great to catch up with Stephen Harris and Ed Quigley. And if you can, please help Ed's cause. He is running for charity on Sunday. There's the details for the GoFundMe page. And on behalf of all of us attached to Jump To It, irishracing.com and Betting Expert, we certainly wish Ed well. And let's hope he's back in one piece for the show next week. And of course, as I mentioned earlier on the program, Jump To It will now be housed on the irishracing.com YouTube channel. So make sure from next week on, you have head to the irishracing.com page, subscribe to it, and you'll get a lot of racing content there. Of course, Vincent and the team at irishracing.com do fantastic work. Head to irishracing.com for all the latest news, form, betting information and tips, and of course, great opinion pieces. We look forward to Jump To It, having a fantastic link with irishracing.com going forward. And as I mentioned, always on this show, Stephen Harris does fantastic work for the Betting Expert team. He's been in great tipping form throughout the year. Head to bettingexpert.com for Stephen's tips, his best bet or his nap bet, and his value bet for racing in the UK each and every day. Hope you enjoyed today's edition of Jump To It. Good luck if you're going racing this weekend, and we'll see you again very soon.